Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I was actually pleasantly surprised when you reached out to me because I read your Medium posts and they're really good.
Thank you.
The one that stuck out to me the most was the one called FUD and FOMO, the dark side.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to talk to you about that. But before we get into that, if you don't mind giving us a little backstory on how you got into crypto and Bitcoin.
Backstory. My backstory is, I don't know, it's unusual in a way, because when I got into the industry, I thought there'd be an awful lot more people like me in here. And there aren't. My background is basically, I've been in IT since 1985.
Okay.
I used to be a COBOL and Fortran programmer, and then took time out to do a politics degree and a master's, and then went back in, .com boom. I qualified as a network engineer and technical consultant. And then that all went kaboom. And then I went working around the world as a project director doing big backbone implementations, voice, satellite, data, internet. I mean, the last one I did was but my career ended in 2011 due to illness, like major surgeries plus arthritis. So I was kind of at a loose end and discovered it in 2017, read the white paper. I've done some distributed computing before, and then I got in, and I thought there'd be more technical people like me in here. And then I suddenly found that somebody said, mentioned white papers and projects to me. And I used to do government tenders, and technical design specs for networks, etc. So somebody gave me a white paper. God, which one? Autonomy, I think. It was awful. It looked very good as a white paper. It was a good white paper. The design was good. Sadly, the parent company wasn't very good, and it went to zero. But technically, it stood up. So I did the white paper, and then on a conference call with the CEO, and then people said, "Oh, you were really good." And I was like, "No, I wasn't. I just did what I normally did, for years and years and years in my job."
Right.
And I said, "Don't many other people do this?" They said, "No." And I was like, "Oh, that's really strange," because I thought there'd be more people, with more of the experience and the technical and business background, but there isn't. And then I moved on to doing white papers for various groups. Then people asked me to write articles which I hadn't done for ages, because I won some story writing prizes when I was in my youth, in my teens.
Right.
So I tried my hand at writing articles, and they said, "Oh, these are really good." And I was like, "Are they?" Okay, if you say so. And I started getting paid for some of them, which was nice. And because I used to present at conferences as well, in network engineering, not crypto, obviously. Right. They said, "Do you want to do some podcasts?" So I did some podcasts and some video interviews. And now I do sort of technical analysis of the tech aspects mainly, not the tokenomics. Basically, when you see a YouTube and somebody goes, "Oh, this project," and they go, "Oh, this is the use case," and they go through the first pages of the white paper, and then there's the big technical bit, and they go, and they go straight to the tokenomics. You know exactly what I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
So many videos. I do the bit that they skip through.
Okay. Gotcha.
I break the tech down. This is the use case. This is how it works. Try and do it in terms that people can understand it, see the value. Right. Private investment groups and, ordinary people sometimes. And that's working out quite well. I'm building quite a good network of people and contacts for the future.
Nice.
And the big bear is obviously very hard. Not many projects around. But it did get rid of a lot of the garbage. And that's what I do. We've got a new podcast out with my co-host, a man called Roy Blackstone, Phil Before Shill. He's got quite a big following.
Phil Before Shill.
A good friend of mine. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And we do that. Basically, we try and do podcasts that don't just, focus on one project or focus on... we try and place crypto in a larger context of like historical, how markets behave, or human psychology. Example, FUD FOMO. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Possible developments. It's more of a big picture thing than a we did one on KYC AML, and the real reasons behind it. It's not about
money laundering.
It's not that at all. This is about control. This is about
control.
inserting a layer of vetting and control. And I'm not afraid to say it. I don't virtue signal like most people. I will tell what I see in terms of analysis.
No, you're 100% right about that, actually. And I don't think we talk enough about that. That's actually what it's about.
It's mainly because most of the people who talk about it are people like centralized exchanges and projects who are virtue signaling so that they don't that be. They're not actually very honest about this topic.
Right.
It's not really fair in a way because I don't have any skin in the game, so I can call it as I see it.
Right.
Which in one way is good, but in another way isn't really fair on them. But then again, it needs to be said.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's true because I dabbled with trading, but I by and large tell people to avoid exchanges because most of them are crap, and then the ones that aren't require too much of your information. And
they also require too much of your time.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, like especially if you're trying to be like some type of day trader, that requires way too much time and focus on this one thing, and that could possibly be good for your mental health.
Day trading really doesn't work in this. I mean, my first, I'm second time married now, got a couple of kids, but my first wife, her brother, used to work in the city in London before I went contracting overseas. Neil, nice guy, and I did some forex trading when I was there. I wasn't great at it, but I did okay. I survived. Day trading only works with things like forex and forex binary options. It does not work with crypto at all because the volatility patterns are skewed. You either invest a lot of time, with your finger on the trigger, and you either fat finger or you get reversed out and liquidate. It's silly. It does not work. You have to be incredibly skilled and put, a lot of work into it to actually succeed at it. And the ratio of reward to investment in time for 99% of people is very, very small. It's not worth it. You're best off doing swing trades like 2-3 weeks or whatever, or long-term investment plays in this.
Right.
Unless you're going to do nothing but this, which not many people can. There's work-life balance and things like that.
Well, and that kind of what brings me to your article on FUD and FOMO. Because, let's take this week, for example. Bitcoin dropped below 8,000, BTC dropped below 8,000. And you see a lot of people basically saying the party's over, right?
We hear it so many times, yeah.
But exactly, that's my point. It's like this is like I got in 2016, so this to me is the fourth time Bitcoin has died. So it's like
99 Bitcoins, the website that logs up. It's called all the obituaries.
Exactly, and it's just like, well, calm the hell down, people. Right?
Perspective, yeah.
And so that brings me to your article because, like, I think FOMO, fear of missing out, is unfortunately how a lot of people got into the market. And what happens is they get in higher than they can, like how we always say, don't invest more than you can afford to lose. Right.
Poor money management is something that is ubiquitous in this industry.
Exactly.
For example, if you were doing Forex, never risk more than 2% of your stack on any one trade. That is a median money management strategy to make sure, if you do stop out, let's say your stop is 15% of your position. That means you're going to only lose 0.3% of what you've put down of your whole stack. Yeah. That's just common sense. And you rinse and repeat. You keep going. If you want to be aggressive, use 5%. But people now, they put 10%, 20% on a BitMEX bet, or all of it. And then, no, I got liquidated. Yeah, you got liquidated because you're an idiot.
Because you don't know what you're doing. Well, I mean, but
nice and common sense. Control. It's kind of a lizard brain thing. Are you aware of that? It's a lizard brain thing. There's the part of the reasoning part of the brain. I think it's the hypothalamus or the hippocampus. My wife's a research biologist, she'd tell you. And there's the fight or flight brain, which came from when we were sort of at the reptile stage before we got to mammals.
Right.
And the lizard part is the one that governs FUD or FOMO and greed or fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if you want to be a trader, you have to be emotionless.
Yes.
And you have to control your emotional fight or flight, greed or fear, or fear and desire, whichever you want to call it. You have to control that. Otherwise, you're going to buy high and sell low, or get wiped.
Right.
Cage your lizard. Otherwise, you'll never succeed. It just doesn't work. And most people don't do that. They're so blinded by the dollar signs, and it just doesn't work. Also, something has changed in this market in 2 years, which not everybody has spotted. When the bear first started, just after CME and CBOE launched,
right,
and now you have banks with trading desks. Yeah. Now you have hedge funds who've bought lots of Bitcoin OTC. Now, what happens now is it's a market linkage that people haven't seen yet. They just think they're still in the crypto is, a segregated little environment where the volatility is the same as it was for you. It's not. Because what happens is, if you have real life panics like coronavirus, if you have panics like the price war between Russia and Saudi right now, which has been coming for a while because Russia has been propping up the shale oil producers with Saudi since 2016 by cutting production. Russia said, well, no, we're not carrying you anymore. Why should we? Right. Which is reasonable from their perspective. What these things do is they trigger panics in the fiat markets, right? Those fiat trading desks are parts of companies and the hedge funds as well that have liabilities when these things happen, fiat liabilities. So what do? They call the crypto trading desk and they pull the liquidity out of Bitcoin to cover their liabilities. And this is happening. There is a linkage now to geopolitics and the fiat market. People don't see that. They just see Bitcoin going down and alts bleeding.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of the larger perspective because an awful lot of people got ambushed by this dump.
Yeah.
Because it's this tunnel vision. And this is why, I don't have time to trade. I've got other stuff to do as well. I'm not really that good. I've done it for a while. And I admit, I know my limits. Currently, I'm teaching myself Solidity because I want to be a dev. That takes up a lot of my time right now, which is why I'm not doing many articles.
Well,
I'll admit, I use a signal service, a good one. Yeah. Because it's saving time.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you about that, how you're talking about the real world events and...
Because it's not a direct linkage; it's an indirect linkage.
It's indirect. Right. Well, the reason I bring it up is because with the dump that we just saw, a lot of people were trying to say it's the plus coin people doing whatever, but it seems to me that we're still trying to, like to your point, we're still trying to act like this is separate from real world events. It's not. What you think that a lot of mining facilities are in China, and China just had a near catastrophic event and it's spreading. So to think that event wouldn't have any bearing on the crypto market where a majority of the mining takes place.
I'd say it's a micro influencing factor. It's not a macro influencing factor. Okay. That is the difference. It's a question of scale. All these little factors feed in, like the plus token thing. God knows where that money's gone. Miners getting wiped out. Not being able to get new rigs because most of the production and rail centers go through Wuhan for lots and lots of products, including mining rigs.
Exactly.
And Wuhan was locked down. They're catching up now because China's turned the corner. They did some pretty drastic stuff.
Yeah, they did.
Put a cap on it. But the point is now the deaths are down, the new cases are down, fatalities are down. They have turned the corner. They had to do some pretty stuff to do it, but they have done it.
Yes.
And it will get back. They have taken a hit, but they will recover. And so, there is a factor, no new rigs. There is a factor of other things in that regard. There is a factor of the plus token thing, but it's not. What it is you have macro factors like the real world events, people pulling large amounts of liquidity for some reasons, various reasons, trading desks, large net worth individuals, etc., institutions. And you also have lots of micro factors, like, for example, large factors, small factors, and they all feed into each other, and they kind of snowball, and people see a panic, and everybody goes, so
you need to buy toilet paper.
Don't start me on toilet paper. I took a picture in the supermarket. Our shelves are still full.
Ours are gone. I have no idea where that's coming from, but I digress.
It's insane because even masks,
yeah.
What you have is you have a disease that's an airborne transmission vector, as my wife says. It's transported in the air, which basically means that the viral molecules are transported by water vapor. Yeah.
Yes.
So a mask isn't going to work unless it's got a respirator with a filter on it. Yeah, exactly. That's a myth. Secondly, a mask doesn't cover these, which have lots of water on them.
Hello. But we'll get flagged for being a conspiracy theory.
That's not conspiracy. That's biology.
That's biology, right? I mean, come on.
It's like any other thing. It's a virus. It came. It'll mutate. It'll run its course, like all the other ones have done in history, and then it'll disappear for some decades, and then it'll probably pop up again in a new form. That's how mutagens work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't expect the media to deep dive on this stuff. I mean, they're not going to.
I'll put it this way: my perspective on the media is, if the media told me the sun was going to rise in the east tomorrow at 6 a.m., I would stick my head out of the window and check. I think people should have perspective because
I think that's about right. That's about right. Yeah. I mean, it's so bad now when they say it's going to rain, I don't even bother. I'm like, whatever. Of course it is. All right, whatever.
Of course it is. Whatever you say. Yeah.
Whatever you say.
You go over there. Yeah, do your thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay. Well, let's take that and let's wrap it back into your article on FUD.
FUD FOMO. Yes.
Okay, because the media continues to promote this idea that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is primarily used for criminals. And it annoys me to no end because all it does is scare people. All it does is, if I get into Bitcoin, I'm either going to get the ABC, the alphabet agencies are going to come knocking on my door, or they're going to think I'm a criminal, or, and all of this gets propagated by the media. So what do you say to people who come to you with that mentality? What do you tell them? Like, I don't even know if it's our responsibility.
Okay. I would say it's not the case, but I would say, let's say for sake of argument, let's say 1 to 2% of crypto is engaged in criminal activity. Yeah, just as a point of debate, right? 1 to 2%. What's the market cap now? Hang on, let's have a look at my phone. I can tell you right now. The overall market cap of the market is, come on, load up. Dun, da, da. 250 bill, yeah? Mm-hmm. So 25, that's 2.5 bill. Let's say 2% of that is, say, 5 billion in criminal activity, right? 5 bill. That's a nice round number. Oh, $5 billion. Yes. Well, what's the size of the world economy in terms of fiat? It's 50, 60 trillion. Yeah.
Trillion, yeah.
Say another number. It's probably lower, actually. It's probably much higher than that.
Yeah.
That's 60,000 billion. And that, let's say that is also 2%. So you've got 5 billion versus 600 billion or so. I don't know, 600 billion, 60 trillion, 600 billion, 12 billion. No, 120 billion. Sorry, I'm wrong. A fiat crime and drug dealing and money laundering, which has not been going on for the last 10 years like crypto.
Right.
This has been going on for centuries. Right? You're talking 5 billion of crypto. Right. How much? Give you an example of HSBC. HSBC laundered 11 bill of cartel money.
Yes, they did. Yes,
twice as much. One bank. You've got Deutsche Bank, you've got JP Morgan's been caught over 100 times and paid tens of billions of fines. And you're going on about Bitcoin?
Yeah, exactly.
No, because human beings are involved, no system is perfect because human beings are not AI. Yeah. They're not machines. We are flawed, imperfect biological creatures. So there will always be some element of error, some element of always, because that's what people do. Most people don't, but some do. So you will always get a small percentage no matter what system you actually use. All I'll say is that the checks and the balances and the protections and the fact that the code is law mitigate an awful lot of the fraud opportunities that you'll find in fiat.
Yeah.
Fiat is way easier to commit crime with than crypto is.
Well, and a friend of mine made a good point about that earlier today is, if I really wanted to commit a crime, the last thing I would use is Bitcoin because of the way it's structured and it's an open ledger and
you've got firms like Chainalysis and whatever tracking all the transactions.
Exactly.
Now.
If you wanted to do a crime, you
really know what you're doing, like using a coin mixer or something like that with a privacy wallet and routing it around multiple times, you will get traced.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's a whole industry of chain analysis that's emerging now. The whole purpose is to track Bitcoin transactions. So if you really wanted to do something, this is the worst way.
You'd use something like Hawala. Do you know what that is? That's the Islamic banking system I discovered in the Middle East. There are no actual wire transfers to trace. It's done by reputation and guarantee. For example, somebody in an Islamic country goes to a local Hawala branch in his country. He wants to send X amount of funds to Islamic country B to an individual there. The Hawala bank points him to an individual, who has funds in the target country. He gives his funds in cash in his home country to the person in country A. That person in country A, phone call, releases the funds at the far end. No money actually crosses a wire, untraceable. How do you think Al Qaeda is funded? How?
They're not going to do it electronically across the internet.
No, nothing moves electronically.
So and that goes back to the BS that the media is propagating, right? Because they're telling people that terrorists use this stuff, and a person who actually knows what's going on, like yourself, can be like, that's bullshit.
It's also people's attention spans now. Very few people think critically and analyze. They just okay, you told me this information, I will believe it because it's in front of me and it's quick and I can absorb it, and I'm not going to think about it, which is very sad, but because now is the time to actually do it if you want to achieve anything in the world. It's even more important now to engage in that, and people are becoming more lizard-brained for instant gratification, hence FUD and FOMO. These are very, very, very old situations. When somebody would say, you can apply FUD and FOMO to go into a sports game.
Actually.
In a way. Oh, when it comes to the game, oh, you'll miss it. Oh, it'll be really good. And then, you didn't go. Somebody tells you, oh, it was really good. And then you're upset. You've missed out. You've got that feeling of missing out. So the next time the game occurs, somebody's it's going to be really good. You don't want to miss out. You've got FOMO. You'll pile in without actually thinking about the reasons. That's the essence of FOMO. It's fear. It's desire and fear of missing out, which is perfectly natural. And it comes from peer pressure, from having a narrative spun towards you in terms of a possible benefit to you, whether it be financial or a pleasure or something you enjoy or something for your family. And FUD is the opposite side of the coin. It's a coin that just flips, in terms of the lizard part of the brain. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt is when the FOMO tells you by association, it's a kind of instant gratification thing. The gratification will occur quickly. But when you don't get the instant gratification, that's when the doubt kicks in. And that's when the fear and the uncertainty kicks in. Because, the animal brain that's got you in or got you out, it doesn't understand reason response. It's either I fight or I flee, or I gain, or I lose. Right. It's a very primal limbic kind of thing. And that's what the roots of it are. You have to, the reason I wrote the article is because so many people I knew were FUDing and FOMO. I did as well. A lot of my friends. And I sat down and I went into a couple of psychology forums and I read about in basic terms, what the essence of the fight or flight, fear or desire, urge was, and where it was seated in the brain and how it made people respond to a variety of things. And then I just applied it to FUD and FOMO on, a notepad. And then the article just came from there, from my own experiences with the crypto market. Especially during the ICO craze, it was rampant then. You could write whole scientific papers in psychology on that.
Yeah. Well, really, the 2016 to 2017 was a madhouse. Yeah. And it's actually, I think a lot of us, whether we want to admit it or not, have kind of blacked out that whole time period because a lot of us got into some shady stuff we had no business.
Oh yeah. The economy was really good, but unfortunately the parent company were a bunch of thieves. They just the ETH and fired the entire team. I remember talking to the CTO. He was sold an absolute bill of goods. He was David, poor guy. He made some money, but he actually wanted to build it.
Right. Well, I mean, you do have so many of those. Yeah. Well, you do have that issue, where you and I may be on the ground level doing the dev work, doing the whatever, but if the people who run it aren't about the right thing, it'll eventually crash under its own weight anyway.
Exactly.
There's only so much you prop it up.
You can have the people at the top who can actually write white papers that can deceive somebody who's got 20 years engineering experience like me, like autonomy, because the paper looks good and the project is sold on the technical proposal and the business plan. But if the underlying motivations of the team itself or who owns the team are not, ethical, then there is absolutely no way you can spot that.
Right. That's true.
Even after due diligence a lot of the time. Yeah. It's the same as Worldcom. I worked at Worldcom. I'm not ashamed to admit it. In the late 90s. And everything was great. I actually spoke to Bernie Ebbers once on a conference call. Seemed a very intelligent man. And did very well. And then when the dot-com bubble went boom and Worldcom went boom, guess where my 7-figure amount of stock options went? Down the toilet. Because Bernie was a crook. Everything looked kosher, everything looked nice on the surface, but it was all a complete house of cards built on fraud. Yeah. Nobody knew, least of all the people working there. Yeah. And that is something that has rinsed and repeated like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times on crypto projects. People were buying into things like Sealer, SEELE network. I read their white paper. It was gobbledygook. It made absolutely no sense. And I was like, this doesn't make sense in Chinese or English. How can you actually put your money into this?
Right.
Why don't you bury it in the garden or burn it or something?
Right. Actually, be more productive. Burn it.
It's fourth generation. That was the thing. Fourth generation blockchain. They said, you haven't even got first yet.
Right. We're not done with first generation yet.
The stuff was just insane in 2017. I'm glad it was fun at times, scary, but I'm glad it's gone because it was. So much time was wasted and so much money was burned.
Yeah,
it just wasn't very healthy.
And I'm glad. I mean, the one thing that I'll say that benefited the space with the crash was that it did shake out a lot of those people. Because you can only prop up a scam on a market so much. Once that market crashes, the scams get exposed pretty quickly.
Oh, I don't know. There's still some around.
There's a couple.
Richard Hart, Hex. Sorry. I did a podcast on him a couple of weeks ago in detail. If you want to listen to it,
I'm going to link that in the description. But you're not the first person, and you probably won't be the last person that says that.
I did about a week's research on him before we did the cast. If you want to have a listen, it breaks down all of the issues with this.
Yeah, sometimes, and this is where it's important that people do their own research.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's pretty easy to tell the ones you should stay away from. But I don't have any ill will to Richard, so I'm not going to say anything
No.
beyond that. But
No, he
you
used to do some good stuff before Hex. He did some
and
good.
I've read some of his work, like his books that he wrote. They're pretty good. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
a smart guy.
he's a smart guy. You know, it's just sometimes you're just like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. You know, but,
Yeah. And the other one, famous one, BSV, did one of him as well. The Baron Munchausen of crypto, as I call him. Good old Craig. Yeah, never fails to entertain.
no,
But yeah, there are still some sketchy things around, but by and large, most of it's gone, from what I can see, which is a good thing.
Well, you know, the one argument that I'll make, playing devil's advocate a bit, is if it works, then I'm less likely to call it a scam than one that it just has a good white paper. You know, because as much as people don't like Craig Wright, it does work. You know, it's the mentality that I think a lot of people have a problem with. The delivery.
Yeah, it's the whole. If he said, "Okay, this is my project,"
Right.
Yeah, excuse me, that I designed, called Satoshi's Vision, yeah, and it's a payment currency, it's a store of value and a medium of exchange, then I don't think anybody would have a problem with it.
No, because BSV works. I mean,
and if that same thing was applied to Roger Ver and BCAT, Bitcoin Cash, I've got to say Bitcoin Cash, I just remembered, not what I normally call it. But if he did that as well, then probably he would gain a lot more traction. But the whole I am Satoshi and this is the real Bitcoin.
And that's what
that is what nobody really.
Well, and I had an.
It does nothing but harm to them. I don't know why they do it. They don't achieve anything by it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had an interesting conversation with someone on Twitter, actually earlier today, and you know, even they said they don't believe he's Satoshi, and they don't buy into all that stuff. But the technology is sound, so it's more of a your behavior is what's causing people to shy away from an outright college.
The branding, the assertions about who he is,
right.
The constant threatening and bullying of people. It's just a massive negative vibe for BSV. It really is. And before that, for Bitcoin Cash as well, it just doesn't help. I don't think when they actually did this, we are the real Bitcoin thing, you know, with both projects, I don't think they really thought through what the consequences could be if it didn't pan out. Yeah, if people didn't buy into it. And now they're so far down the rabbit hole, they can't really get out now.
Right. Well, like he can't stop saying it now.
No, he can't. He can't now. He's actually in court about it now, so he can't. He definitely
can't. It's a shame. It really is, because like I even, you know what, I read his book, his Satoshi's Visions book, and if you could remove the whole I am Satoshi part, it is probably one of the better crypto books that I've read.
It's not that bad from what I've heard,
It's not bad. But when you go into the whole I'm Satoshi and you all are going to jail that he tends to do sometimes, it's like, okay, all right, I'll be over here.
Like live streamed psychosis, isn't it, in a way?
Well, you know, and it doesn't help. You know, it doesn't help
his case at all.
I mean, it doesn't help his case. It doesn't help the way the world sees crypto, and it doesn't benefit anybody. So it's just like, why do that? You know,
I had a theory on Twitter once. Was it about 6 months ago? Yeah, you've seen the marketing conferences for BSV. All these, it's like a televangelist meeting sometimes. These conferences, it's weird. I said my theory is he read L. Ron Hubbard's manual on how to start a religion, Scientology, and that's what he applied to BSV. That's my theory.
Well, now it's interesting that you bring that up, because you have people want to believe in something.
Yes.
And we do that, and not not to say it's a cult or anything like that, because
Hmm.
quite frankly, you got some BTC people who act the same way.
Yes.
But
Maxi.
it's the idea that people want to believe in something so bad that they'll glam onto anything.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the snake oil metaphor.
Right, it's a snake oil metaphor,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Basically, I'm selling you a wonderful cure in this bottle.
Right.
You've never seen it before, you glom onto it. People have done it for millennia.
Well,
everywhere.
and people are like that. And like you say, it's the lizard brain, right? I mean, it doesn't take much to get people to go down these different paths that don't actually lead anywhere. That's not a slight on BSV. I'm talking about in general. People are like that.
It's a facet of human nature. It always has been.
Exactly.
And these people are well aware of that, and they're exploiting it.
Well,
and they're playing.
But to a point, a lot of these projects are like that, where they have a cult of personality, right? Like
there's also an element of tribalism. My project, my tribe is better than your tribe.
Exactly.
Tron is a classic example of that.
Tron, yeah.
There are lots of others as well.
Ethereum is like that to a point, because I mean, you have to think that the Ethereum that people talk about nowadays is not the actual Ethereum that started. That's why you have Ethereum Classic and you have Ethereum. It's well documented what happened, so if anybody wants to look into that. But Vitalik went with Ethereum. And when Vitalik went to Ethereum, so did everybody else. And that's why Ethereum is where it is, and why Ethereum Classic is where it is. Right? The church went with Vitalik.
ETH is a lot more than what people see. What people see in the public space is they see the currency.
Mm-hmm.
They see some project updates. Yeah.
Right.
They see the potential of ETH2, but they don't really see it. All they see are bits. They see bits about the beacon chain, bits about Casper, bits about sharding, and a lot of other things. But when you actually, this is quite techie speak, but when you actually start to code in it and you get into the GitHub community and the Ethereum developer community and, Stack Overflow as well, all the people on there, you realize, and all the different things that are being built, there are literally tens of thousands of people building stuff, and none of this is visible. Yeah. The actual ecosystem itself around the Ethereum virtual machine is massive. It is absolutely huge, and it's growing every day. It dwarfs anything else in the space, and it's like an iceberg. Yeah.
You see the tip, and then
you see a tiny tip on Twitter and in the media, but you do not see this massive beast.
Yes.
That is all over the place. I mean, it's not just decentralized projects built on public chains. There are corporations building with Ethereum and Solidity.
That's true. Yeah, very true.
Loads of derivatives like Hyperledger and God knows what else. It's a massive, massive beast. And people just see the little bits, and they see a small tribe in the little bits. Bitcoin's like that as well. A lot of the development community there. Other projects, they're not really icebergs because they're a lot smaller. What you see is what you get, and it's in the public space. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
With those two, people don't actually really see the big picture of what's going on. So, I'm defending my tribe a little bit because you can't really generate a complete picture of Ethereum without being aware of all that underlies it, really.
Right.
No,
that's true.
Treat it fairly.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, no, that's true.
A lot of other projects you can, because most of it's out there in the public space and it's seen on a daily basis. But with the two big ones, it's much harder to form a clearer picture.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, that you're right on about that. And it's unfortunately until we get more, I don't know, because you can't really look for unity in this space because it's not really built that way, right? Everybody's.
It will be. I mean, the next big thing Andreas was talking about was gateway protocols that are interoperable. Basically, that chains can transition to, that tokens can be fungible and transition to, atomic swaps, true dexes. Yeah. where there is no actual vault capacity. There are no central exchanges. You can basically trade an Ethereum token for, I don't know, Ripple through a gateway. Yeah, that technology will arrive within the next few years with killer apps and UIs that normal people can use without even knowing that it's running on a blockchain. Yeah, that's when you'll see the adoption. Until then, and that's when you will have a whole top layer over the entire industry that people can run apps on and everything else. That hasn't come yet. It has to be a UI and a killer app that your grandma can use.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've said that
sort of level of expertise. When that happens, like the mouse from Palo Alto that Steve Jobs stole, you know, and the GUI interface, that was an interface people could use rather than the command line. Mm-hmm. When a similar thing happens for us, that's when it'll go. And that's when the tribes will kind of disappear. They'll still be there, but they'll be underneath.
They'll be underneath, and
it won't be quite so visible. Yeah, it's not there yet. You're right, it's not there, but it'll take a while, but it'll get there. The tech has to mature for it to happen.
Yeah, that's right. All right, wow. Well, you know what? You've opened my eyes to a lot of conversation that I think a lot of people need to hear. So I really appreciate you, Mark, for taking the time.
It was a pleasure. I was it was Elisa, a friend of mine on Twitter, Heidi's.
Oh.
She tweeted about your show, and I thought, he wants people to go on do interviews. I was like, yeah, all right, I've got a day next week. Why not?
Oh no, she's great.
Then when I heard that you wanted me to talk about me, I was like, why the hell do you want to talk about me? Nobody ever has any interest in an old washed up coder.
Oh, no, and that's kind of.
It was always about what project can you do for us? What paper can you do for us?
No. My channel was based around you. You know, my channel is based around people.
My channel's based around people. That's cool. I've not seen that before.
Yeah, and I want to keep it like that because the more conversations we can have, the more I think people can understand what's actually going on. We're not a bunch of nerds sitting in our mother's basements doing. So it was great talking to you, Mark. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.